Yes, it has to do with contesting. And that's one of the topics: contesting and DX operation, remote control operation, what Cabrillo is, QSLing, and connected networks. So outside of FT8, contesting, I guess, is the most popular activity. The goal in the contest is to make as many contacts as possible in a given amount of time, and usually they're what, 24 or 48 hour type things.
Yeah, there's one going on this weekend. It started at
48 hours.
yeah, started 00 and go.
Start like midnight on a Friday and go to
8 o'clock last night.
8 o'clock last night.
0.
Okay.
Those for 2 days.
So if you're into contests and you want to try to get an award, okay, you've got to submit your log, obviously. And there's a standard format for doing that they call Cabrillo format. There's some apps that will take your normal logging file and convert it into Cabrillo format so you can submit it. And all it does is rearrange a few fields.
Our logging software will produce a Cabrillo file.
Yeah, some of them do. Some of them you have to run through a converter. Depends on the logging format. So what is the Cabrillo or Cabrillo format?
It's alpha.
Okay. In a lot of the contests, they prohibit you from certain bands. And one of them typically is the work bands. So you can't do 30 meters, 17, or 12. I don't really do contesting, but I've seen those restrictions on some of the stuff. And I know, well, I guess I have done a couple FT8 ones, and they don't do 30. Although I thought they allowed 17 and 12.
Oh, okay.
Never,
They don't?
never.
Okay. Because I see a lot of stuff on 17 and 12 on FT8.
Oh, yeah, but not contest.
Okay. I didn't do good in the contest.
DX maybe, but not contest.
Okay. So from which of the following bands is amateur radio contesting generally excluded?
30 feet.
30 meters. There's a thing called, well, there's spotting networks that people use in these contests, or I guess it doesn't have to be a contest, where people report signals, you know, it's like train spotting or something. And they say at such and such a time, whatever, on this frequency, I got this station. And there's websites where you can go look up that information so you can see, you know, where people are transmitting that you might want to contact. There's people that cheat, sort of, and do self-spotting. And they list themselves, so they're in that list for people to contact. Instead of having somebody else list them. I don't know, but it's not really.
Not in the spirit of
Yeah.
contest.
I guess it's not outlawed per se, saying it
Most
is.
of the time it is.
Oh, okay. So
You can use spotting networks.
when you do a spot, I guess they know who did it, right?
You can use spotting networks if you're registered in that class of operation. A lot of the main contests will say unaided or aided, like either you're gonna use that advantage or you won't.
Okay.
So, you know, it's all up to the operator about it being honest.
Okay. Which of the following best describes the term self-spotting in connection with HF contest operating?
Yeah, alpha.
Okay. Most VHF, UHF contests rarely include FM. So they're claiming that most of the activity for doing VHF, UHF contesting is going to be in the weak signal segment of the band, and that's going to be close to the calling frequency.
So is there a
Standard calling.
calling frequency for weak signal?
I was wondering the same thing. I don't know.
There's a calling frequency, but whether it's weak or not, how do you know?
Yeah, what's the weak signal segment?
A QRP area like on, I think it's 14,062. If you're gonna operate
Okay.
low power.
Down like where FT8 is, which way they would consider weak signal, right?
Below FT,
Okay,
it's like CW,
okay,
below FT8. 062 is a QRP spotting for
okay,
weak signals. So if you're gonna operate CW with low power, it's gonna be around that 1406 to 14062 area.
okay.
It's just reserved so you don't have high power stations coming.
Hopefully. But there's no power limit down there.
Well,
I mean, nothing different. You could
It's-
operate.
yeah, it's just the integrity of the operators. That's reserved. The band plan says that that's a QRP area. First.
Okay, during the VHF UHF contest, in which band segment would you expect to find the highest level of single sideband or CW activity?
Charlie.
Working DX. Oh yeah, this is the one. They claim that you need to know the protocol or etiquette to do it. So if you've got a pile up, I guess this, I don't know if this is the FCC recommendation, exactly where it came from. You're only, or in a contest, and that's the one that really surprised me. You're only supposed to send your call sign once or twice and then sit back and wait for them to contact you.
It's the DX code of conduct.
I
That's
don't think
each-
that applies too much in a contest, from what I've heard. Where you just,
It's just encouraging you to listen. Like,
Some people observe and some people don't.
Yeah.
But
you have to keep calling.
if you listen to the person or the station that they're trying to contact, they'll take a break every once in a while and give their call and say, you know, calling CQ, and then it starts all over again. Then you can send your call again. So it's not like you hear him and you send it once and you wait an hour, you know, for him to figure out that you sent it, because he may not have heard it.
right,
You send it once or twice. And when he's made a contact, send it again once or twice.
okay,
Because
You just have
usually
to-
he'll make a contact and say QRZ, and then everybody else piles in and makes their call again.
okay,
So this is.
Sometimes the way
referring to-
we work it is that I'll get partial calls, you know, 2 or 3 partial calls and write them down. And then I said, okay, I've got 3 partial calls. Let's try this one. And then I'll go to the next one. Or, you know, if I get a full call, I say, I hear such and such. but I want to get the QRP station first, but I'll come back to you.
Okay, so, and now this is referring to, conducting a pileup, right?
Or
Yeah.
contest.
Yeah, and so this does actually apply to finding an open frequency and calling CQ. Because the whole principle of finding an open frequency and calling CQ is you have to talk long enough that somebody scanning through the frequencies will
Yes.
hear or see your signal.
See, this is says working DX, so
Yeah.
if you're trying to get a rare distant station, it's just saying, don't monopolize the whole thing.
Yep.
Your call once or twice and listen.
Don't turn all the way up to your full 1K and drown everybody out.
Right.
So you don't do the
Some
normal
people do
CQ,
that.
CQ, CQ, your call sign 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, and you have to keep doing that when you start a new place on the band where you want to operate and call CQ. You do it and you wait for a couple of seconds, and if you don't hear anything else, do it again, because as they said, people have to tune around on the band. They don't know where you're going to be exactly, so they have to find people that are calling CQ. And if you call CQ and wait for a minute, they could tune right through where you are and not know it. So call CQ. If you don't hear anything, call it again. Sometimes you have to do it 4 or 5 times, but somebody generally finds you.
Okay. So that's one of the reasons they have a waterfall or a spotting network.
Mhm.
To see where people
That
are.
helps. Yep.
All right. So how should you generally identify your station when attempting to contact a DX station during a contest or in a pileup?
Send your phone call.
But wouldn't you do that whether you were in a pileup or a contest anyway?
Yeah.
But it's originated from the DX code of conduct.
Okay. So let's see, what's important here?
Split.
Oh, this gets into split operation we talked about the other day.
Yeah, I actually spent some time looking this up over the week too.
Yeah. And one of the examples, and this one doesn't talk about it, is if, say, for instance, you were trying to contact somebody, say a general or a technician, and you were an extra, and you could
Every-
transmit
Every week.
in
I
the
deal with
in
this.
the extra segment of one of the bands where it's different, and do the split operation, so they, you could listen to them transmitting outside the extra band.
What's always common is like on other than the work bands, their frequencies are open for general extra on. But on the older bands like 15 meters, 20 meters, there's an extra portion. Well, these DX stations, they always pick right at the edge of the extra portion. So they sit there at 14,025,
Okay.
and they say they'll send, especially, in CW, and they'll send up. They'll go, this is EL7, whatever, up. And that tells you, don't be transmitting on their frequency. Go up 1 or 2 kilohertz.
Yeah.
So that's what it's talking about, split.
Right.
You transmit in a range up from the frequency that he's listening, that he's transmitting.
Okay. So why might a DX station state they are listening on another frequency?
Oh, no. Yeah,
Yes. All of these.
All of those. QSLing. After you made contact, you might want a confirmation. I guess in the old, well, they're still sending cards. You guys got a whole wall full out there, right, Michael?
Yeah, but this QSLing is you want to verify that the so like you're pulling something out of a pileup or whatever, and you said so I have WA4 Echo Charlie Tango QSL, and the station will come back and say correct or
Just talking about-
yes. So it's like asking, did I get the call? Did I get that information correct?
QSL is acknowledged receipt,
Yeah,
Okay,
but I think this is talking about the actual confirmation through a card or logbook or.
right,
whatever.
and sending
Yeah,
cards
yeah,
through
yeah.
the
Okay,
bureau,
I'm sorry.
QSL
Yes.
bureau.
Sorry.
so is the US QSL Bureau still active? I've heard
Yes,
people, it is,
Yeah.
because I've heard people say that it's not still active.
it is.
Now, I did read some stuff where there's no guarantee on how long it takes. Could
Oh,
be
yeah.
6 months,
Yeah, because they're not mailing onesies, twosies.
right?
They wait until you get about 10 cards and then they'll send them to you.
But they'll chuck them too.
Oh, really?
If you don't have envelopes at your bureau and it exceeds like 1 or 2 years, they'll chuck them
Oh,
because they cannot deal with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of cards unclaimed. And I'm sure I've had many thrown away.
okay. Which of the following contacts may be confirmed through the US QSL bureau system? US and non-US.
And you have to have envelopes at your number, like if your call sign has a 4, you have to have your envelopes for them to use, self-addressed stamped envelopes at the 4 bureau.
Oh, there's one for each zone?
I'm here in Florida and I use the one in Illinois because I'm a non.
So I have to use, I don't even remember where 3 is,
That's
up in northeast somewhere,
Delaware, Pennsylvania.
something like that.
Yeah, Delaware, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. Or no, not West Virginia. Delaware.
Okay. Okay, so, like we said, they group cards to go to a particular country. And they hold them until they get enough. I didn't know anything about the envelopes. Now, so you just have to have your envelopes at the US, by the appropriate US bureau.
And then once
And they send it-
arrive at the bureau, they'll take all the 9s, they'll look at your call sign and sort them. And then once you get like 5 or 3, 4, 5 cards, they'll take them out, take one of your envelope, your stamped envelope, and mail it.
Which means the envelope you send them is like a
So
larger type envelope to hold
Right.
multiple cards that they're going to send you.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Or you can pay them and they'll
Yeah.
make self-addressed stamped envelopes for you. But you have to have them at the,
Oh, fine.
Who pays for the bureau? I
they're
mean,
volunteers,
oh,
amateur volunteers,
but still, they've got supplies and stuff,
that have to be paid for by.
somebody. But it's not a government operation,
No.
strictly private.
And where do I find this?
Just, it's like US QSL bureaus. But if you talk on the air to foreign, you might want to have self-addressed stamped envelopes at your bureau. Because if you don't, if they're unclaimed, they'll toss them.
Okay.
Most of the DX expeditions and things like that, they have this QSL manager that
Right.
people send it to that QSL manager to get it to the expedition and vice versa.
Yeah, that's farther down on the slide.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Now, this implies that the QSL manager is something totally different than the Bureau, right?
Yes.
Okay. And they may not take 6 months or a year.
Well, depending on the number of contacts that expeditions usually get, it may take that long to get through it all.
Oh, okay.
But that's why money is involved, because that kind of encourages them
Ah,
to
okay.
get you your card.
Do you have to pay a QSL manager?
They,
Don't know.
yeah,
Okay.
they're,
So they're not necessarily volunteers?
I don't think so. There's usually a small amount of money exchanged.
So what is the function of a DX QSL manager?
I think it's Bravo.
Yeah, that's what I would guess. Okay. This is kind of like mesh network stuff where people take off-the-shelf Wi-Fi routers, change the firmware, and set them up so, and I'm assuming they have to increase the power level to be able to communicate with other routers and make a mesh network. And they are doing that on the 2.4 gigahertz. I forgot what you call the band. There's a name for it, but turns out we're primary on 2.4 gigahertz, and cell phone users are secondary, and Wi-Fi users.
Right.
You say that like and they use something called discovery and link establishment protocols to allow them to automatically find other basically Wi-Fi routers and keep reconnecting the network. So if one of them drops out, they can they can find another path. So it's always possibly changing. So it's a lot of redundancy. It's kind of cool the way it works. I don't know if there's anything like that around here.
That sounds like a mini internet.
Yeah. It's kind of like a wideband Wi-Fi. But I mean, all I ever see is, you can download or modify the firmware yourself. So they behave different, but most of the routers and access points are what, 10, 20, maybe 100 milliwatts at most. So
I
I'm
think
not
100 milliwatts is the max allowed by the FCC.
I think you'd have to have an amplifier or something to get any kind of distance, or
I wouldn't want.
unless and it's not clear. I don't think they're doing this via the internet, but I guess they could be set up like a virtual network, maybe.
I wouldn't want to put an amp on 2.4.
Isn't this what they call Arden? ARDEN?
I don't know. I think I've seen that term, but I don't know what it is. And it's not on the exam.
Oh, okay.
So what type of equipment is commonly used to implement an amateur radio mesh network?
Charlie.
And that's all you have to know, not how to do it.
Dog.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Which of the following frequencies are sometimes used for amateur radio mesh networks?
Bravo.
What technique do individual nodes use to form a mesh network?
The discovery and link establishment protocol.
Right. Okay, remote operation. You can, there's a couple, I know of at least two services where over the internet you can operate a station in another country, or they're just all over the place. One of them I know about charges a fee. You have to join it as a member, and then they charge you I forgot what it is, like 10 cents a minute or some amount like that while you operate. And those, or at least that particular one, those are 1,500 watt stations with stacked Yagis and the whole 9 yards. The free one, I'd say a majority of the stations are with different clubs, and you have to be a member of the club to use it remotely. There are some that are free to use. None of them seem to be very high. It's just somebody that's got their 7300 set up for remote operation. Nothing fancy. We've got a guy in the PCARS club, Gary Lindgren, that does it all the time out of Australia. And what's the other one? Is it not Indonesia? Something like Indonesia, one of those other ones, because he's licensed there too. So that brings up, if you are operating a station via remote control and it's in the United States, you don't have to add anything to your call sign. If you're operating a station outside the United States, you not only have to abide by their regulations, you have to put some indicator on your call sign, and I forgot what it is, but this one is basically about operating in the US.
Is it like portable or remote? Like,
I forgot, and I think I talked to Gary about it once.
I just don't know if, like if you,
But I do know you have to operate by the country's rules that you're transmitting in. And there's something to indicate that you're outside the country. Yeah, maybe it's just a /US, or I don't know. So what indicators required to be used by US licensed operators when operating a station via remote control, and the remote transmitter is in the US?
no addition.
Nothing.